If there was ever a prerequisite for a day spent exploring and discovering all the fascinating history that make up Colonial Williamsburg, it should most definitely be dropping into the theater strategically tucked away inside the Colonial Williamsburg Visitor Center to view the remarkable film crafted by Paramount Pictures for the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, titled Williamsburg, The Story of a Patriot. The longest continually running American motion picture in history, praised for its stellar production value and for being so much more than simply an orientation film. It's been shown here daily since its 1957 release, with screenings only briefly pausing during the pandemic. The film, based on Virginia's role in the American Revolution, was almost entirely filmed in Williamsburg, with many of the popular landmarks, historic buildings, and colonial homes travelers will find here on a visit shown within the film. The main character of the film, John Fry, is played by a young Jack Lord, best known for his later role in the popular television series Hawaii Five-0. A fictional Virginia planter and soon-to-become elected member of the House of Burgesses, the film's events are shown through the lens of his character and reveal his oftentimes uncertain outlook regarding the colony's fast-growing advancement towards pursuing independence. His encounters with a cast of well-known founding fathers happening at various scene location settings found throughout the colonial capital are the perfect staging ground for new visitors looking to create an immersive experience while exploring Williamsburg's vast history. An opportunity to vividly bring the film's imagery to life during their own personal exploration of the old colonial capital. After more than 6 decades since Paramount's cameras captured scenes here for the movie, we wanted to set out on our own exploration here in the modern day to see if we could locate and uncover some of the filming locations shown in The Story of a Patriot. A sort of then and now to identify how various scenes that were filmed way back then look in comparison to today. I would soon realize this wouldn't be a straightforward endeavor, with a handful of honest mistakes happening right out of the gate, all of which required a bit of digging to uncover the correct scene location. Alright, so a little bit of the backstory on what's happened. So when I sought out to do the then and now of The Story of a Patriot filming locations, I had originally thought the opening scenes with John Fry at his home, departing his home, were all filmed at Bassett Hall.
It's sure them saddlebags don't slip. Mr. Fry got a long ride ahead of him.
How far is it going?
All the way to Williamsburg.
And if you look at the house, it looks like the Bassett Hall home. Opening scene of the film shows a wide shot of Bassett Hall, which is John Fry's home in the movie. It looks like Bassett Hall, same amount of windows. Don't see any significant changes with the shutters. Long entranceway, to the front of the house. But that scene would have happened right here as he departed for Williamsburg. And it does appear that the columns on the porch have been changed. In the movie, there is 4 front ones, and now there's just 2 supporting beams at the front of the porch. Come to find out, based on the window placement and a different porch of the house, it actually wasn't Bassett Hall. And we eventually figured that out, got into the edit room and realized that's not Bassett Hall. And we found out that it actually was Tuckahoe Plantation, the childhood home of Thomas Jefferson, located near Richmond, Virginia. And after some extensive research trying to find it, Sarah was the one that actually discovered it on Google.
I just looked at the images and went down the list of images till I found one that looked similar to Bassett Hall.
I knew as soon as she pulled that image up that was the house in the movie, John Fry's fictional home in The Story of a Patriot. And that's when I knew, hey, it looks like we have a road trip we're going to have to take. And here we are at Tuckahoe Plantation, where Hollywood once came to film the John Fry home scenes from The Story of a Patriot. Okay, we got a parking lot here. There we go. Looking for the John Fry house. And here they go. They've got the honor box where you put your donation, and you can also get a little information about the boyhood home of Thomas Jefferson, but also John Fry's home in The Story of a Patriot. We're finally going to film the correct filming location, as I can see the house looming behind the trees in front of me. And wouldn't you know it, right up here, finally, not Bassett Hall. Very similar, it seems, but it is the childhood home of Thomas Jefferson, but also the home of John Fry from Story of a Patriot. Plenty of scenes from the movie shot right here. All right, so we have a little bit of rainfall that's happening upon arrival at the house here, but we're gonna take a walk down the entranceway and try to frame up a shot from the house here. Such a popular movie for Colonial Williamsburg, the longest running movie of all times. Longest continuous running movie of all times. And we're outside the main character's house. And this is after he returns from Williamsburg after being re-elected to the House of Burgesses, I think for the second or third time. Not exactly sure which time it was, but this would be that vantage point when he comes around the curved path. Same shot we filmed at Bassett Hall, but like I said, it definitely wasn't Bassett Hall, and it was here. But in this one, we can see that same shed beside the house, as well as the two chimneys and the shingles. Looks like one of the shutters is closed on the house right now, the middle one. We have a little feline friend that's rolled up on the Thomas Jefferson home. Kitty, 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 kitty. Kitty, 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 kitty. He immediately goes to Sarah. Kitty, 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 kitty. All right, here we are with the gate scene, and this is when John Fry is departing the house. You actually see him coming down that entranceway there in front of his house, and you see the house in the background, and that would be right about the angle of the shot from the movie. Similar vantage point from right outside the gate. John Fry, I believe, gives his son one final goodbye. His wife is in the background waving, and he's departing through the gate on horseback. But here we are after all these years, and it does appear that the gate has changed. I don't know if it's a completely new gate, but aside from that, this is the angle looking straight on from that entrance, that departing scene. John Fry en route to Williamsburg to serve his duty as a burgess for Virginia. All right, so finally we get that taken care of, our first filming location of The Story of a Patriot. Now let's head back to Williamsburg and see what other filming locations then and now we can discover. All right, this next scene we're gonna go locate happens at the Capitol building. And it's a scene where John Fry had just met a series of founding fathers at the Raleigh Tavern, one of them being Patrick Henry, and what I guess would have been the following day, they actually had a session at the House of Burgesses, and there's a wide shot of the Burgesses entering the Capitol building, and we're going to go try to locate which side of the Capitol that semi-wide shot was. So we're approaching the Capitol building now, and we'll try to figure out what vantage point the camera was framed up on and give you a then and now. Now, in the scene in the story of a Patriot, you can see a pathway that the burgesses are walking on. And this side of the Capitol does have a sort of pathway, so I'm not sure if this would be it. And I don't think it is, because it has the squared off ends of the building. So it must be the west side, which will be a little walk along this pathway. And we'll do our best to frame up a then and now, see if we can see any difference, which I seriously doubt we will with the Capitol building. It looks as it did all the way back since the restoration for the most part. Of course, there's been subtle enhancements through the years in different parts of the building. Then again, here is a little bit of a pathway that could have appeared in the movie that you'll see here in a second from the screen grab from the film. Alright, and it's probably going to be somewhere around this vantage point where the scene of the Burgesses entering into the Capitol for a session at the House of Burgesses. And it definitely looks like this would probably have been that framing used in the feature film. And the path that appears in front of the Capitol does seem to have changed its pathway shape somewhat. And I could be mistaken, but it does look like those two trees on either side of the Capitol are the same trees seen in the film. Does that not look very similar placement? I think it does. But not too much more has changed. The pathway's changed, and the Capitol looks as it did in the orientation film. Continuing our filming locations then and now, Williamsburg, the story of a Patriot, we're headed to a new location at the Raleigh Tavern. So this is the scene where John Fry, when he arrived in Williamsburg the first time, would have came to the Raleigh Tavern. After getting off his horse, he would be introduced to Anthony Hay, takes him into his room and accommodations for the evening at the Raleigh Tavern. But you can see here there's a pretty significant change to the Raleigh Tavern from the 1957 film, as the Raleigh Tavern's porch has entirely changed, as well as I believe they've done some other changes, down to minuscule changes like inching the doorway a little bit to the right, I believe it was. But as you can see in the film, there was just a small porch entryway with a few steps leading to the front entry door. But the tree, I can almost guarantee you, is the same tree. And it also appears that the Raleigh Tavern hanging sign has changed. But he would have gotten off his horse after tying it up, and then he came around the fence there and shook the hand of Anthony Hay, made his way inside. And here we are across the street from the Raleigh Tavern, and another scene from the story of a Patriot is at the Barber and Perokmaker. You see one of the townspeople leaving a store after the British have finally repealed the tax on imported goods. And you can see this at the upper portion of the frame in the shot. And it's still hanging here today as it did in that film. Although we can't be entirely sure this is the actual building that scene was filmed at, because we've noticed on our return visit to Colonial Williamsburg that you're seeing here right now, this window is curved, and the window that appears in the scene is actually like a 90-degree angle window. So not exactly sure this is where that scene took place. It actually could be one of the stores across the street that we found. Okay, now here we are across the street at what we think could be the actual filming location for the scene of the Barber and Perokmaker. Okay, so this would probably be a better vantage point Of course, they're a little tighter, potentially, but you can see in the foreground is a portion, the upper portion of the banister, and you can see in the background there is the Raleigh Tavern, which in the 1957 film was only the small entryway porch, and today they've built a more accurate version of the Raleigh Tavern's front end, and that is the new porch, so that wouldn't be in present day. And then in this window, you can actually see the decorative pattern of the interior part of the window right inside that window there. You can see that, and it's that right there kind of seems like the dead giveaway. Pretty positive this is the scene from the Barber and Perokmaker. And after the non-importation agreement was put in place, merchants and people that followed along with the agreement were seen in various scenes of the film doing away with their British goods, and one of those scenes happened here at the Millinery. And it appears that the merchant throws some sort of cloth off the front porch, and that took place here. And aside from a little paint job around the window pane and the signage at the top of the Millinery, it seems to be pretty much intact as was from the 1957 film. And although the barrel trash cans are covering up the curved openings under the porchway, that is the same as it was in the film as well. Right, and crossing the street from the Millinery, we're gonna go down to Tarpley, Thompson and Company, and there's a scene that happens here that unveils the fact that one of the merchants isn't following along with the non-importation agreement.
A few of them have refused, much to their regret.
And unless we are just looking at a complete overhaul restoration since the movie was filmed, this building is actually brick, and it looks like the one from the film actually used some sort of wood siding. So not sure if they did a complete restoration since this, or perhaps maybe they used another location inside Colonial Williamsburg to film the Tarpley Store scene. So not really surprising if there was a significant change. Colonial Williamsburg is constantly upgrading and making sure things are outfitted in the truest manner of the building that once stood there. Here is some of these tea crates, similar to what's seen in the movie. But like we said, we're not exactly sure if this is the building because so much has changed, and you can clearly see that there appears to be a bay window somewhere down here and not an entranceway with a door. It does say the Tarpley Store reconstructed. Merchant James Tarpley built the store around 1759. He advertised a wide array of imported goods, including textiles, hats, china, cutlery, and jewelry. But also in the backdrop behind that scene, this building right here has completely changed. And as we suspected, that scene was not filmed at the Tarpley, Thompson and Company, and it was actually filmed right across the street at the William Pitt store. The dead giveaway was the boxed bay windows, as well as the backdrop of the house behind it with the shutters, which now in 2023 are completely painted solid. And in the movie, it looks like there's some sort of burgundy or a darker color. But this is that scene where they would have positioned some of the tea boxes, tea crates over here by the window, and the angry townsperson would have came up, grabbed the tea crate from the merchant and threw it right through, I believe, this window right here. From 1957, the story of a Patriot. In 2023, right along the Duke of Gloucester Street. And we're walking down the Palace Green right now towards the Governor's Palace. Another scene from the story of a Patriot. John Fry and his family arriving by horse and carriage at the Governor's Palace. And here is that scene where the family would have pulled up on the horse and carriage, and the daughter would have asked, "What is that horse and that other statue?" And John Fry lets her know that's the unicorn and the lion, a symbol of Britain. Here is a good attempt at the then and now from the governor's palace scene.
Mr. Wythe, they're beautiful.
Unfortunately, they are near done. Iris and good friends never stay long enough, madam.
And in the scene where John Fry brings the family to Williamsburg, he drops into George Wythe's house. And Fry's son, Robert, gets to meet George Wythe.
And I hope, Master Fry, you will consider this your second home.
Thank you, sir.
And in this scene, Wythe tells John that Lord North is closing the port of Boston as a result of the events of the Boston Tea Party. And in the background there, somewhat of a similar vantage point as this, is the semi-clear view of the rear part of the George Wythe house. This is roundabout that framing, a little difficult with a pathway in the center here in modern day, as well as some of the garden areas, but that's where the scene took place. And that scene was filmed in the rear part of the George Wythe house. Here we are, coming up on it. And here we approach another scene from the film. And in this scene, after the resolution calling for a day of fasting, humiliation, and prayer, that scene takes place here at Bruton Parish Church. And the intro to that scene is the burgesses and other attendees entering into Bruton Parish. And right over this stone perimeter wall is where that scene would have taken place. You see the tombstone to the left there, and that is where you see the burgesses and other attendees of the day of fasting, humiliation, and prayer. They are walking down that, and you can see the tombstone in its full form way back in 1957. And here today, it's actually just part of a tombstone, and you only see the base of it. That's where that scene took place. Yet another filming location. And this is a wide establishing shot. Somewhere at the beginning of the film, you also see the Millinery and the large brick house with a kind of a off yellow border trim surrounding the roof right beside it. But this is about that vantage point from that scene that you see. The scene is loaded with the Colonial Williamsburg townspeople. Somewhere in the background there you see the Raleigh Tavern, as well as some other shops and buildings along the Duke of Gloucester. But another wide shot from Story of a Patriot. After another memorable day spent in the old colonial capital of Virginia, discovering filming locations from the Story of a Patriot, John Fry's words at the end of the motion picture are a fitting reminder for all of us when considering the sometimes uncertain, undetermined, and undecided pathways that most surely lie ahead.
It wasn't an easy choice, but it was a free one. And if one wants to be free, one must learn to choose. May God help us always to make the right choice.